The year was 2584, and humanity had long outgrown its origins on Earth. With the advent of faster-than-light travel, humanity's reach had spread across dozens of star systems. Colonies flourished on distant planets, and the human race had made contact with numerous alien species. But this expansion came at a cost. With every new world humanity claimed, new conflicts arose. Yet nothing had prepared them for the shadow that was about to fall across the galaxy. Admiral Elena Richter stood at the helm of the Kestrel, her flagship, a ship of unmatched firepower and advanced technology, drifting through the dark void of the Andromeda cluster. The air on the bridge was thick with tension as she gazed out into the cold expanse of space. Star systems, galaxies, and nebulae all shimmered like distant lights, but it was the quiet before the storm that made the crew uneasy. "We're almost there," a voice from the communications station cut through the silence. Lieutenant Solana Stokes, a young officer, was the first to speak after nearly an hour of unspoken anxiety. Richter nodded without turning from the view screen, where the coordinates of the system they were approaching flashed in red. "Activate the scanners. I want to know everything about that system, Lieutenant." No surprises. "Aye, ma'am," Solana replied, fingers flying across her console. The hum of the ship's engines seemed almost drowned out by the growing tension, as if the Kestrel itself felt the weight of the upcoming battle. For over a week, the fleet had been on the move, first through the wormhole to this uncharted region of space, and now they were nearing their target. What they had discovered was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. This star system, located far from the bustling trade routes, had been silent for millennia. No signals, no communication, no record of its existence. It was almost as if the stars themselves had erased its presence from the galactic map. That was until the Discovery, a human reconnaissance ship, had stumbled upon it 3 months earlier. Admiral Richter clenched her jaw, her thoughts heavy with the memory of the Discovery's final message. "It's them." That brief, cryptic transmission had sent ripples of fear through the entire fleet command. Nothing was certain, but the evidence pointed to something far worse than any war humanity had ever fought. The crew of the Discovery had gone dark shortly after sending that message, and the Kestrel had been dispatched to investigate. "I'm detecting multiple large energy signatures in the system," Lieutenant Solana said, her voice breaking the quiet. "They're clustered around a gas giant, likely some sort of station or fleet. There's nothing else out here, no civilian ships, no other structures." Richter's eyes narrowed. "A fleet, or something that resembled one. Plot a course to the gas giant. Full speed, but keep our distance. We're not walking into another trap." "Aye, ma'am," Solana acknowledged, her fingers dancing across her console. The crew had learned to trust the Admiral's instincts. She'd led them through crises before, but this was different. Every nerve in Richter's body screamed that something wasn't right. The Kestrel surged forward, cutting through the vast nothingness of space. The stars outside the bridge windows stretched into elongated streaks of light, painting the void in hues of purple, blue, and gold. The gas giant loomed ahead, its massive swirling clouds reflecting the faint light of the distant sun. As the ship drew closer to the gas giant, Richter's thoughts returned to her family. Her younger sister, Eva, who had died in the last conflict with the Interstellar Dominion. She had joined the fleet, hoping that the wars of the past would finally end. But as she surveyed the deep space around her, she knew that peace was an illusion, a fragile dream that would shatter in an instant. Her family, and "Admiral, we've got something on long-range scanners," said Commander Raycon, the ship's tactical officer. A former combat specialist from the Martian colonies, Raycon was a stoic man with years of experience in war. His eyes were always vigilant, and his mind was always working several moves ahead. The sections were empty. "What do you see?" Richter asked. "Several ships. Massive ships, ma'am. They're not human." Their design is unlike anything in our databases." Richter stiffened, her blood running cold. "Are they moving?" "No, ma'am," Raycon replied. "They're stationary, but I can't tell if they're active or not. They're too far out for us to make any detailed scans." "Can we detect any signs of life?" Richter asked, her voice betraying no emotion. "Negative, ma'am. No human signatures, no communications. The whole system is eerily quiet." The tension on the bridge was palpable. Everyone had heard the rumors about alien races, some peaceful, some hostile. But the presence of such a fleet in the heart of human territory was unlike anything they had expected. "Keep scanning. We'll proceed with caution," Richter ordered. "Prepare the fleet for possible engagement." As the Kestrel approached the gas giant, the rest of the human fleet, an armada of destroyers, frigates, and support ships, fanned out behind her. The ships glided silently, their presence a shadow in the blackness. Each vessel carried the weight of countless lives, ready to defend humanity's right to exist. The Kestrel was the spearhead of this defense, the tip of a sharp blade poised to strike, should the need arise. "Oh." Richter's gaze remained fixed on the view screen, her mind racing with possibilities. The fact that the enemy fleet had been dormant until now gave her little comfort. The silence suggested that they were either lying in wait or had yet to notice the approaching human forces. She had no intention of finding out which. The fleet finally reached the outermost edge of the gas giant's orbit. The system was silent, the only noise coming from the hum of the ship's engines and the occasional beep from the sensors. Suddenly an alarm blared, slicing through the stillness of the bridge. "Enemy ships detected! They're closing in!" Raycon shouted. His eyes flashed with a mix of concern and excitement, the adrenaline pumping through his veins. "What are they?" Richter asked, her voice steely. "They look like cruisers, large, heavily armed," Raycon said, scanning the readings. "There are at least 15 ships coming from the direction of the gas giant. They're coming fast." "Raise shields, all crew to combat stations," Richter ordered. She didn't wait for confirmation. "Fire up the engines, we need to maneuver." As the bridge crew scrambled to execute their orders, Richter watched in disbelief as the alien ships loomed larger on the scanners. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. Sleek, almost organic in shape, with sharp angles and glowing energy conduits running along their hulls. Their weapons were massive, and their design suggested a level of technology far beyond humanity's own. "Admiral, they're locking onto us," shouted Lieutenant Stokes from the communications station. "We're receiving a transmission." "Signal for systems," announced Stokes. The voice that crackled through the speakers was cold and guttural, utterly alien in its tone. "This system belongs to the Dominion. You will surrender or be destroyed," the voice declared in perfect English, sending a chill down Richter's spine. "There is no place for your kind here." Richter's pulse quickened, but her face remained stoic. "This is Admiral Elena Richter of the Terran Fleet. You are trespassing in human territory. We will not surrender." Richter's pulse quickened. "We will not surrender." The alien voice seemed to pause, as if considering her words. Then it spoke again, its tone colder than before. "You have been warned. Prepare to face the consequences." With that, the transmission cut off. Richter didn't hesitate. "Open fire," she shouted. "Engage the enemy." The Kestrel's guns roared to life, unleashing a barrage of plasma bolts toward the alien fleet. The enemy ships retaliated almost instantly, their weapons flashing with terrifying precision. The bridge shook as the shields absorbed the initial hit, but Richter knew they couldn't withstand this level of firepower for long. "Deploy the drones! All fighters launch!" she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The battle had begun. The once quiet system was now alive with the violent clash of energy weapons, missiles, and explosions. The human fleet fought with all their might, determined to defend their home against the unknown threat. But as Richter watched the enemy ships advance, She couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far darker. The Dominion had come, and they would not stop until humanity had been crushed beneath their boot. The silence of space was always deceptive. From the moment the human fleet had entered the gas giant system, the tranquility had seemed almost suffocating. It was the kind of silence that promised an imminent storm. Admiral Elena Richter knew this, and as she stood on the bridge of the Kestrel, her mind was already turning over every possibility. She hadn't expected this, an unknown alien fleet, hiding for humanity to stumble upon them. But here they were, and they were no longer hiding. The communications officer's voice broke through her thoughts. "Admiral, the alien fleet is closing in on us. They're locking their weapons systems onto the entire fleet." Victor's sharp eyes never wavered from the view screen, where the alien ships had now begun to close in, their sleek, terrifyingly advanced forms drawing nearer. They looked like a perfect fusion of organic and mechanical, their designs alien in every sense, with long, tapering shapes that seemed to shimmer against the background of the stars. "Bring shields online to maximum power. Prepare for combat," she commanded, her voice calm but tinged with an edge of urgency. Her hands clenched into fists, a surge of adrenaline flowing through her veins. She had led humanity through countless battles, but this felt different. This was something new, something she couldn't fully understand. "Prepare the fleet for evasive maneuvers. We can't let them box us in," she continued, walking toward the central command chair, where she could oversee all actions. She would need to make quick decisions now. She would need to lead by example. For a long moment, the fleet was motionless, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The alien ships approached with the precision and coldness of a predator stalking its prey. They weren't rushing in, but their presence was overwhelming. "Admiral," said Commander Raycon, her trusted tactical officer, his voice a mix of caution and determination. "We've analyzed their weapons signature. These ships are equipped with energy weapons we've never seen before. It's unlike anything in our arsenal." Richter nodded but kept her eyes trained on the view screen. "I've tried hailing them," Lieutenant Stokes, the communications officer, responded, her fingers flying across her console in a blur. "But they're not answering. They've cut all communications." "Of course they have," Richter muttered under her breath. If the alien fleet had truly been waiting for humanity to find them, there was no telling how long they had been watching. What was it that had brought them to this place, and why now? She didn't believe in coincidences. Something had driven them here, and it wasn't just a random encounter. A sharp ping from the radar interrupted her thoughts. A huge surge of energy was detected, and it was coming straight for them. "Our hands braced for impact," Richter shouted, her voice cutting through the tension that had settled like a thick fog over the bridge. A violent jolt shook the Kestrel, sending a shockwave through the ship. The hull groaned under the impact of the alien weapons. Sparks flew from the control panels, and several consoles flickered to life before sputtering out. The Kestrel rocked again, this time more violently, as another energy blast slammed into the shields. "Shields holding at 62%, Raycon reported quickly, though his voice betrayed the tension mounting within him. "But they're firing faster than we can absorb. The next volley will be critical." Richter's heart raced. She had expected the first salvo, but this was far more coordinated than anything she'd anticipated. The aliens weren't simply attacking. They were studying them, probing their defenses. They were testing the humans. "Return fire," Richter ordered, her voice hard and commanding. "All ships, target their lead vessel." "We need to break their formation." The Kestrel's massive guns roared into life, firing streaks of plasma into the void. The other ships in the fleet followed suit, their weapons lighting up the space around them like the briefest flashes of daylight in an otherwise impenetrable night. Explosions rocked the alien fleet, but the enemy ships remained steadfast. their hulls seemingly resistant to the humans' firepower. "This isn't working," Raycon muttered, frustration evident in his tone. "Our weapons aren't making a dent." "We need to change our approach," Richter said. "We need to make them react." Lieutenant Stokes's fingers flew across the console, analyzing the incoming data. "Admiral, we've received another transmission. It's not in any language we've encountered before, but it's a pattern. It's almost like a signal of some kind." Richter's eyes narrowed. A signal? Was it a message? A command? "Run it through the universal translator," she ordered. "I want to know what they're saying." Stokes worked quickly, her eyes scanning over the readings. There was something strange about this transmission. It wasn't a simple message. It was a frequency, a series of coded pulses that seemed to have an underlying rhythm. After a tense few moments, Stokes turned to face the Admiral. "Admiral, the signal, it's..." "A warning," Stokes said, her voice filled with both awe and concern. "It's saying, 'Leave this place. Do not challenge the Dominion. You will not survive.'" The word sent a shiver down Richter's spine. Dominion. That name felt like an iron weight sinking into her chest. It was a name that echoed through the histories of the galaxy, a name tied to legends of cruelty and conquest, of worlds swallowed whole by a cold, unstoppable force. And now, they had arrived at humanity's doorstep. "They call themselves the Dominion," Richter muttered to herself. She had heard rumors of a mysterious empire from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, but never had she imagined it would be real. The Dominion had long been shrouded in myth. Until now. "Admiral," Raycon spoke up again, his voice tight with urgency. "They're recharging their weapons. They're preparing for a full-scale barrage. We need to act fast, or we won't make it out of this." Richter's mind raced. She wasn't about to let humanity be crushed beneath the heel of some unknown empire. But what options did they have? They had no intel on the Dominion's capabilities, no idea how many ships they had in reserve, and no way of knowing if this was a prelude to something much worse. "We'll force them to retreat," Richter said, her voice firm, even as doubt gnawed at the edges of her resolve. "Lieutenant Stokes, begin broadcasting a counter-signal. Use our most advanced encryption. We're not going to let them dictate the terms of this war." "Aye, ma'am," Stokes replied, her fingers already working furiously. Richter turned to Commander Raycon. "Prepare the fleet for evasive maneuvers. I want every ship on full alert. If they're trying to set up for a devastating strike, we'll hit them first. Get the fighters in the air and keep the pressure on their lead vessel. I want them to know that humanity will not bow to threats." Raycon nodded, but his face was pale, grim. "Understood, Admiral. But if we can't break through their shields, we might be facing the end of the line." Richter's gaze turned to the stars, to the men and women who depended on her. The threat of annihilation loomed over them, but she wouldn't let it define their fate. "Then we'll fight until our last breath," she said, her voice cutting through the fear and uncertainty on the bridge. "We'll make sure they know who they're up against." The first wave of fighters launched from the Kestrel, their sleek, maneuverable ships cutting through space with agility, darting toward the alien fleet. The fighters unleashed volleys of laser fire, seeking any weak point they could find in the Dominion's defenses. Despite their best efforts, the alien ships barely seemed to notice, their shields absorbing the hits without issue. Meanwhile, the rest of the fleet, now fully alert, followed the Kestrel in coordinated evasive maneuvers, trying to throw off the Dominion's targeting systems. But the alien ships adapted swiftly, their movements precise, and their weapons devastating. Another blast struck the Kestrel, this time knocking out a portion of the port-side weapons array. "We're taking heavy fire," shouted Raycon from the tactical station. "We can't hold out much longer if they keep this up." Richter's mind raced. They couldn't afford to retreat. Not now. "Get me the fleet commander," Richter barked. "We need a tactical change, now." The communications officer quickly patched in Fleet Commander Ryan Harper, a veteran of many space battles. "Admiral, what's your status?" Harper asked, his voice taut with concern. "We're being overwhelmed," Richter admitted, her eyes locked on the alien ships. "But we're not backing down. We need to hit their flagships. If we break their command structure, we might be able to force them to retreat." "They understood. We're coming in fast, Admiral," Harper replied. Richter's heart pounded in her chest as she prepared for the most desperate move of her career. It was now or never. The survival of humanity rested on this battle. "Let's make them regret underestimating us," she said, a steely determination in her voice. The battle was upon them, and there was no turning back. Admiral Elena Richter stood with unwavering resolve, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen of the Kestrel as the alien fleet, now in full assault mode, advanced. The space around her ship erupted in flashes of light, the collision of energy bolts from both sides shaking the ship with every hit. Shields flickered dangerously as the Kestrel rolled to avoid another barrage of enemy fire. "Admiral, enemy flagship has activated a cloaking field," Rakon's voice, urgent and sharp, cut through the chaos of the bridge. "We've lost their signature." "Understood," Richter replied coolly, though her heart raced. The Dominion flagship, the heart of their invasion force, had just made itself invisible. The technology of their fleet was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, far surpassing anything even their best engineers could have hoped to achieve. "Signal all ships," she continued. "We need to stay on the move. Don't let them isolate us." Around her, the crew worked with intense focus. The Kestrel shuddered once more as another shot impacted its shields. The ship's systems were under siege, but the crew was determined. They had fought through countless battles, and they would fight through this one. "Commander Harper, can you track the flagship's movements?" Richter asked, speaking through the fleet's secure communication channel. "We're trying, ma'am, but with their cloaking technology, it's like trying to find a shadow in the dark." Fleet Commander Ryan Harper's voice came through with a sharp edge of frustration. "We've got multiple enemy ships on our tail, but the flagship is all but invisible." Richter's mind raced. The cloaking technology was more advanced than anything humanity had developed, but it was not invincible. It had to have limitations. Every technology had a flaw. The question was whether they could exploit it before the Dominion exploited their vulnerability. "Hold steady," she ordered, turning to Rykon. "Can we get a reading from their gravitational wake or any other anomalous emissions?" Rakon's fingers danced across his console, working furiously to scan for any clues about the flagship's position. "There's a distortion in the nearby asteroid field, Admiral. It's faint, but I think we've got a signature. If we're right, the flagship is using the asteroids as cover." Richter's lips tightened into a grim smile. The cloak wasn't perfect. If the flagship was hiding behind the asteroid belt, it was still vulnerable to detection. The trick now was finding a way to strike before the alien fleet realized their plan. "Commander Harper, plot a course around the asteroid belt. Let's flank them," Richter ordered. "We'll get in close before they can reposition." "Roger that, Admiral. Hold on, Kestrel." Harper's voice replied with a steely determination. The Kestrel surged forward, cutting through space with a renewed sense of urgency. The rest of the fleet followed suit, their engines flaring as they adapted to the changing tactics. The distance between them and the alien forces closed, but the Dominion ships weren't standing idly by. "Enemy ships are shifting their positions. They're trying to cut us off," Rykon warned. "We can't let them," Richter snapped. "Tell the fleet to spread out. Hit them from all angles. Don't give them a chance to surround us." Outside the ship, the battle was nothing short of chaos. The Kestrel's cannons fired relentlessly into the advancing alien ships, sending shock waves through space with every shot. Plasma bolts illuminated the void like deadly fireworks. Yet the enemy's ships were proving to be a tough match, their shields absorbing most of the human attacks with little visible damage. "Admiral," Stokes shouted from the communications station. "The Dominion ships, something's wrong. They're not responding to our fire. They're holding back. They're waiting for something." Richter's brow furrowed. Waiting for what? Before Stokes could answer, the entire ship shook violently as another barrage hit its shields. The Kestrel lurched, and alarms blared across the bridge. "Damage report," Richter ordered sharply. "We've lost forward shields on decks 3 and 4, Raycon barked. "Hull integrity is holding, but we've got critical systems down on the lower decks." "Captain, we're taking too much damage. We can't keep this up much longer," Lieutenant Stokes said, panic creeping into her voice. Richter's mind raced. They were running out of time. The Kestrel had been the spearhead of the human fleet, the vanguard in a war they hadn't even begun to understand. But if they didn't act now, they would be nothing more than a footnote in the galaxy's history. A lost fleet, vanquished by a force they couldn't even comprehend. "Commander Harper, break off and make a run for it," Richter ordered. "We need to regroup, come back with everything we've got. This is too much, too fast." "Negative, Admiral. We can't let them win here. You're not the only one with something to fight for." Harper's voice was filled with fierce defiance. "We're staying in the fight. Kestrel, we're coming in hot." Richter's eyes narrowed. She understood Harper's stubbornness. He was a veteran of countless battles, just like her. But this wasn't about pride. This was about survival. Still, she respected his resolve. "Understood. Then we fight to the last. We'll make them pay." The Kestrel was now in position, her forward cannons locking onto the distortion in the asteroid field where the Dominion flagship had been hiding. There was a brief, tense moment of silence. Then, without warning, a massive energy surge erupted from the asteroid belt, and the alien flagship emerged from its cloak. The Dominion ship was a behemoth, its design far more intimidating up close than the human fleet could have ever imagined. Its hull was a dark, jagged mass of angular metal, with eerie energy conduits running along its surface, pulsing with power. The ship's primary weapons, a series of massive railguns, flared to life, their energy signature unmistakable. "Aerial ships, brace for impact," Richter shouted. The Kestrel's shields flared as a massive energy beam collided with its forward defenses. The ship bucked under the force of the blast, sending ripples of energy throughout the hull. "Shield at 40%, Raycon shouted. "Return fire," Richter barked. "Get in close, hit them with everything we've got." The Kestrel surged forward, her engines roaring with power as she charged the Dominion flagship. The rest of the fleet followed, and for a fleeting moment, the human ship seemed like a swarm of bees attacking a far larger predator. The battle raged around them. Explosions erupted in every direction, the night sky lit up with the deadly light of combat. Yet even as the human ships poured every ounce of firepower into the enemy, the Dominion flagship didn't seem to be slowing down. "Admiral," Stokes cried, "we've got something coming in, another fleet. It's not ours." Richter's blood ran cold. "How many?" "Hundreds," Stokes said, her voice trembling. "More than we can handle." From the corner of her eye, Richter saw something that made her stomach twist. Emerging from a nearby nebula, a fleet of Dominion warships appeared, their sleek forms sliding into position with terrifying precision. They were massive, far larger than anything the human fleet had ever encountered, and they were coming fast. Harkana's style Happy News Hour came on, and she locked the display in a ring. "Commander," she called out. "This is a trap," Richter muttered under her breath. The incoming Dominion ships began to fire immediately. Their weapons lit up the space around them, a deadly rain of plasma that engulfed several human ships in a blinding flash. "Admiral, we can't hold this line much longer," Raycon shouted. "We're outgunned. They're going to destroy us." Richter clenched her fists, her mind racing. They couldn't win this fight, not now, not with the reinforcements arriving in full force. But they had one advantage, the element of surprise. And there was one card left to play. "Prepare the experimental strike team," she ordered, her voice hard with resolve. "We're going to force them to retreat. One last push." "Aye, ma'am," Raycon replied. "Stokes, get me Fleet Commander Harper," Richter ordered. The communications officer quickly patched through the signal and Harper's voice came over the line. "Admiral, we need to make a strike, a direct assault on their flagship," Richter said. "Get everything you have into position. We're going for broke." Harper's voice was steady but filled with the weight of impending doom. "Understood. If this works, we'll make history. If not, we fight until there's no one left to fight," Richter finished, her voice fierce. The Kestrel and her fleet surged forward once more, this time with all the firepower they could muster. It was the last gamble, the final play in what could be their final battle. As the human fleet engaged the Dominion forces with everything they had, Richter's thoughts turned to her sister, to the people who had given everything for humanity's survival. And she swore in that moment that no matter the outcome, she would ensure that humanity's legacy would be one of defiance, of bravery, and above all, survival.